Welcome to the Give for Grouse podcast, dedicated to giving the rough grouse a voice by promoting sound wildlife management, advocating for forest health, and championing all things conservation. Now let's get to the show with Cody Altizer and Eric Law.
Mr. Cody Altizer.
What's going on?
Another day, another dollar.
Another day, another dollar. Another day, another podcast episode.
What is it?
How are you doing today, by the way? I skipped right over asking how Eric
Yeah,
is
don't worry
doing.
about me, Cody. I just had surgery.
I know. And I was going to ask.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's over. Hey, you know what? It's yesterday's news.
Give everybody an update on how you've been since you've been cut open.
Oh, I tell you what. It's I feel better than I have in years. I highly suggest everybody getting their gallbladder out. So there, you've heard it first.
Heard it here.
So next podcast, I want to hear that you had your appointment, ready for yours to get extracted.
Yeah.
No, I feel great. Other than the surgery part, I coughed and sneezed the other day, and it was like a cat. You had to peel me off a ceiling. It hurt so bad. But no, just learning how to the diet thing.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure out what you can eat, what you can't eat. And not to get graphic, we'll just leave it at that. But yeah, there's some things don't agree with you like you think, Yeah. But hey, thanks for not asking. But yeah.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah. But we got a pretty cool guest on today, Mr. John Kehn with Ohio Division of Forestry. He's a Service Forestry Coordinator for Northeast Ohio. So we'll get him on and here pretty soon. And he's got a lot of years, a lot of experience in forestry. So looking forward to hearing what John has to say. But before we get into any of that, Cody, we have some homework.
We have some I didn't want to interrupt you. I didn't want you to forget about our big news.
It is. Drum roll.
Dun, 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 dun.
What we got?
Dun, dun,
Oh, Bob! Focus.
New sticker giveaway. As you can
Okay.
see, to
Little
piggyback
focus.
on
Back it up.
the
Back it up.
success
There you go. Perfect.
of our ruffed grouse and chainsaw sticker. We created these bad boys last summer. And saved this little guy. It's a Bob White. Again, most of the people are hearing this podcast, not watching it. So I forget to give the visual clues. It's a Bob White quail holding a drip torch with a little flame. Exactly the same design concept as the grouse and the chainsaw. Kind of saved it for this time of year. Today is the 3rd of March. Burn season is upon us. And there is not a bird, just as a rough grouse loves a chainsaw, there's not a bird out there that loves prescribed fire more than a Bob White quail. And this little buddy's just chilling with his drip torch. Same giveaway. If you leave us a 5-star rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, just screenshot it, send it to us with your address. And at this point, if you haven't gotten a grouse sticker, you get a choice, quail or grouse.
Yeah.
For those of you who have donated, who have left us a review and we have sent you a grouse sticker and you want a quail sticker, we are more than happy to send you one. All that we ask you to do is to make a small donation to our billboard campaign, which is our second homework item. If you make a $10 donation and you've already left us a review, and this is kind of wordy, so if you're confused, just message us. I'll sort it all out. If you've already left us a review and we've already sent you a grouse sticker and you want the quail sticker, just donate at least $10 to our billboard campaign, and we will send you the quail sticker.
And I'm going to add to that, okay? For $10,000, you could have this one for those that can see it, but those that can't see it, this item here, it's flawless, no creases, no nothing. It's absolutely perfect in condition, and it has the old Deer Hunter project logo on it, not the gift for grouse. So this item here, I know what we have, and it's worth 10 grand. to pay for a billboard. Now, this can be yours today.
No
there
lowball
you-
offers. Mint condition retro version.
There is maybe 2 out there on the market. No, I would say there is maybe 4, and most of those are on drip torches. So this one here, we know what we have. 10 grand. It could be yours
That's
today.
right.
Just let us know.
True story. I love this little guy. I'm partial to the grouse and the chainsaw just because I'm partial to grouse and chainsaw. But I think this might be a better design. I don't know why. I don't know.
It screams, "Where do you want me on the line, boss?"
Oh yeah, he's just like, I'm ready. They call them
where you want
a
me?
firebird for a reason, Bob White Quail.
Yeah. But anyway, well, with all that being said, I think we should probably just jump right on into it. Get Mr. John Kehn ready to rock and roll.
Let's do it.
Well, Mr. John Kehn, how are you today?
Pretty good. How are you, Eric?
Oh, we're doing good. We're doing good.
Been a while.
So, yeah, it has been. We talk on the phone every now and then, and we. I think I do the most of the venting, but about stuff. We always talk about how much years we got left.
Right. That's the truth.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, John. I know your schedule is extremely busy, and you're part of the world of Ohio. And so I don't know how much time we have today, but we're going to squeeze a lemon out of you. So,
Well, you guys shoot with your questions, and thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
yeah. So, John, just a quick and dirty version. We had you on many years ago with the Deer Hunter Project and stuff, but we're basically starting completely over. So, just a generic version of who John is and what you do for a living and what have you. What you want people to know about John Kehn?
Well, I have been a service forester for the Division of Forestry for almost 25 years. Prior to that, I worked in a paper mill, in a union shop. That kind of cut my teeth that way. Didn't get into government service until I was 37, so that's why I'm still here at 63. But no, I work with private landowners almost exclusively, but also with other natural resource partners to try to get them educated on the topic of forestry in the state. We work with a wide variety of people in this position. Auditors' offices, Farm Bureau, metro parks, different municipalities, conservation easement groups. There's a lot of things we get into because we never know what the landowner is calling about. Typically, we have some guesses, but we have to know a lot about what's going on in order to guide them to make good decisions. We are basically the service foresters are basically educators as much as we can be. We have some obligations to the federal government that are at times all-consuming, but in general, we are trying to help and assist private landowners in making good decisions with this resource.
Yeah.
So
it's just not grabbing a Biltmore stick and just going out there and just measuring trees anymore.
No, that's not for as a government forester and a state forester. No, it's mostly education. The guys who do a lot of that are the consulting foresters. There's different types of foresters. Unfortunately, a lot of landowners do not know what a forester is or do not know how we can assist them. That is a big stumbling block for many of us. But no, we don't do too much in the way of timber sales. We advise on them. Don't do a lot of measuring. We do a lot of talking to landowners, explaining to them what needs done to meet their goals. and we just try to get them from A to B. And if a harvest is in the plan, we discuss that with them and go over, how we're going to improve this resource by using that tool to meet their goals. And then we get them in touch with the people who can assist them with that, so that they don't make economic mistakes. So many people, and you've heard me say this before, here in Ohio, I don't have hard numbers, but I would guess it's 80 to 85% of the timber sales that people do are done without any information from a forester. So it's a high percentage, and there's
really,
and it's not necessary that it's that low a percentage that are getting assistance, but they don't know who to turn to, and there's a lot of reasons for that. We're not out there as much as I'd like us to be, even though the guys are extremely busy with what they do. But no, it's a problem. It's a definite problem. That I'd like to see that percentage increase, because believe me, we hear the horror stories all the time. The land who have made mistakes.
Yeah. Well, not to interrupt your thought, but it's easy to throw shade at the state for not being, promoting what you do. I mean, but it does. That's another topic on itself that we can't discuss. We'll put it on the shelf for now. But the private consultants, the consulting foresters, the private people, they should be the ones that should be out there promoting themselves. And all you really see, at least in my neck of the woods, and I'm not throwing shade or anything like that, it's like, well, how come you're not? Because all you see is, little signs on intersections of, hey,
I can tell you exactly the reason why. And if you have perspective of the numbers of landowners, the numbers of sales, the numbers that a consultant can physically do, our unit of measure is a board foot of lumber, 144 cubic inches, or easiest to visualize by 12 by 12 by 1 inch. Okay. That's our unit of measure in this field. A consulting forester in a good year, most of them are, self-proprietors or have their own businesses. And a real good year for a forester is someone who can mark 4 million board feet a year physically. That's all you can do and put out for bid and administer the sales. I've only heard of a couple guys having a better year than that. And that's only if they had actually very large sales. And most of the guys can do a dozen to 25 or 30, depending on the parcel sizes in their neck of the woods. So it's not that many. And then they also do a lot of management plans for landowners for the tax reduction programs here in Ohio. The farm program, CAUV, current agricultural use valuation, is the biggest one. It's the biggest benefit to a landowner to get in that program. Many auditors are requiring a forest management plan as the document that tells them, hey, this landowner is going to try to do this stuff, and he's managing for a timber product. So, and you'll have to keep me on track here, because there's so much stuff rolls through my head when I start saying this stuff. Another body of knowledge comes in that's just like, it's hard to keep track. And but again, most landowners don't get help. The consultants, okay, back to my original thought, and just to keep that in perspective, 4 million feet a year is a lot. A lot of them do 1.5 to 2 million feet. Well, roughly 1 billion feet a year is cut in this state of footage. Yes. So at least that's the numbers I've been told. For a long time. Now it's going down. It is going down. The markets have been poor here the last couple of years, but some of the better outfits are they have developed markets where they can make some money. Lots of them, if you're just a mill sawing and you're a price taker, you're having trouble. We've lost some big mills. The sawmilling piece of it right now is not the most lucrative piece. But anyway, so if in perspective, a band mill running one shift, one of the larger band mills running one shift, is going to be able to process roughly 4 million feet a year. Some of our larger mills can do 7 to 9. Some of the real big ones can do significantly more than that. But there's only 2 or 3 of those in the state. So one forester, think of it this way, one consulting forester can feed one of those band mills a year, basically. So, and there's a lot of mills out there. There's a lot of furniture producers, especially down in your area. But just as a perspective, that's the consultants cannot afford to advertise.
No.
And the schools are not producing foresters, and consulting is not something in general a forester coming right out of school can jump into. It takes a little bit of maturity, or they have to be guided by a veteran forester, and a lot of the guys aren't interested in that.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason landowners aren't getting in touch with foresters.
Yeah. Well, here's one, like a stat that we had a gentleman on, Noah Smith. You said you know him, don't you? Didn't you
Noah
say
Smith?
Noah Smith down there in North Carolina, Virginia? What other states does he do, Cody? Kentucky?
He does Kentucky, Tennessee, Southwest Virginia, West Virginia. His name's Noah Smith.
Yeah,
He went to
consulting
WVU.
forester.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I do not know him.
Oh, okay. I thought you did. But anyway,
No,
we had him on talk about forestry and, talking about grouse management, forest management and stuff like that. And this is somebody else. I'm sorry. Mark Wiley.
I've heard that name, but I don't.
Mark Wiley with the Division of Wildlife. He's the upland biologist for the state. And he gave us a stat. I'm sorry. I thought it was Noah. 1968, there was 6 million acres of land, forested ground. And then let's just put it this way. There was, in 1968, there was 3 million acres difference between mature woods versus young forest. And we were wondering, like, hey, wildlife was just exploding, especially like rough grouse populations.
Right.
And then he was saying, and it's not necessarily recent. I would assume it's probably lower. I think it was 2012. I have it here. Hang on a second. Oh, it's right here. 2012, it was 8 million acres of woods in the state of Ohio. Okay. Now the difference, 1968 was 3 million between the two habitat species.
Right.
Now it's 7.2 mil. So basically only 800,000 acres of forest in the state of Ohio is young forest or early successional. The difference in between. So what I'm asking you is, what can we do? How do we reverse this? Like, how do we solve this problem in John Kehn's crystal ball? Like, how do we, am I saying that, Cody? What are we trying to do here? How do we fix this? How do we change that narrative? Is it a forestry aspect? Is it educating people, the benefits? Cody and I, that's what we're trying to do, is advocate, prop up the forestry community, logging, etc., on top of everything else we're doing. And that's why we want to have people like yourself on, and Noah Smith and stuff like that, other foresters and stuff, giving, their 2 cents to the problem. But how do we correct this, like, in your opinion?
Well, I do believe it's education. Many landowners in certain parts of the state do some very bad harvesting practices. When I say a bad harvesting practice, that's where you're going to change the habitat. Any harvest is going to not any harvest, but it can change the habitat quite a bit. Sometimes for the better, sometimes not, for the worse, or it will be fine for the species you guys are interested in propagating. But there's just a lot different Oh, I'm sorry. You'll have to edit that out. There is just a lot of things that have happened over, since 1968 and now.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember growing up in Coshocton County when grouse were a very normal occurrence. Now, I'm up here in the Northeast Ohio area where the harvesting practices are very bad. The landowners are signing bad contracts and prematurely selling higher grade, what potentially higher grade timber to pallet mills, but it is creating the kind of habitat you're looking for. It's ugly. It's ugly. The difference is that a lot of the land and the acreage up here comes back initially an invasive species. That's we always had rows when I was young, but the other things that have come in.
Yeah, still grass, etc.
Yeah, it's just, and the up here in the Northeast, there's buckthorn, and you've got honeysuckle everywhere, and ailanthus and lots of places. So those are different things. I have seen stands up here in the Northeast that were cut heavily back in the 50s and 60s. And as long as grapevine control was done, they've come back okay. But the stands they're cutting now that way, I don't have high hopes. I think they're going to be, I think they're going to have a low percentage of low quality, or a high percentage of low quality trees coming back.
Oh.
And it's going to be slower because the invasives are so thick.
Yeah.
But I still haven't seen, even though we have the habitat in some of these portable mill cuts, and they're all over, in particular Ashtabula County, I still haven't heard, and I don't know what you guys know about the grouse populations there, but they still don't seem to be rebounding.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the main problem is there, if that's one of your goals. I understand some of that early forest habitat is very important. For me as a forester, if a landowner would like that, I just want to make sure they do it right. They prep for it. You've got to do some invasive species control for 2 or 3 years prior to having your cut. You're going to be fighting it afterwards. Most young forest stands like that, a human can not get in them for about 12 years, maybe. You can't physically get in there and do anything. So, I mean, we have some of that habitat up here, but I'm not seeing the bird populations come back.
Yeah. So,
but the big thing to me is those landowners that are doing most of those kind of cuts don't know what they're getting into.
yeah.
They're signing horrible contracts. We have a lot of buyers that don't even have a mill. All they've got's a contract. And, they're
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They don't even have a mill. They're buying.
What do you see?
They buy stuff. They buy things from unwitting landowners who don't do any homework, and then they put a portable mill on it, and that mill feeds a pallet company. Mm-hmm. But if you're buying it for, a nickel a foot or less, and I posed that once to a timber buyer, I said, "You're paying less than a nickel a board foot," and this guy wasn't doing this. This was another guy. And I said, "They're not even paying a nickel a board foot, are they?" And he's like, "No, they're not."
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's stuff like that I've heard for years and seen it. I've seen it play out. So to me, the whole thing is education. How do we get the word out to people that, hey, don't sign anything until you talk to a forester. Just don't do it. Do a little bit of homework.
Yeah.
It just makes a huge economic difference, because many times I hear, well, they just cut it that way because they wanted money. Well, they didn't get nearly what they could have.
Yeah.
So it's just like, that just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Do some homework.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the educational piece of the puzzle, and it's not easy. you know, in the state foresters, the service foresters, we've never, in all my career, we've rarely been able to self-promote. And it's the same thing with the consulting foresters. Now, again, most of them are sole proprietors, so we don't have too many individuals trying to build a company. And consequently, they're just not out there advertising, okay, because they don't need to, and they don't want all the headaches that come with building a business and having employees.
Yeah,
we've had a few guys try it. Then it usually goes south.
Yeah,
that's just not in a lot of foresters' nature to want to get that involved with it. Now there's a few firms around the east that I've heard of that are, you know, doing quite well. But there's nothing here in Ohio.
Yeah. So you were talking about, like, you know, with people that listening to this at portable mills, like, you know, anywhere else in Ohio, you know, you have a crew come in, they got the skidder, they got the bulldozer with the grapple, you got the loggers and they're logging. Up in Northeast Ohio, and I'm not, you know, picking on a certain group of people, but most of those people, those portable mill people, are the Amish, correct?
I don't know what the percentage is. There's a lot of the guys that own the mills are Amish.
Uh-huh.
A lot of guys cutting the deals are not.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're thinking they're just basically preying on people, the uneducated, if you will.
They are, and the unfortunate part of all that to me is that we have some tremendously good operators in the region. You know, we do all over the state. We have some really good professional people in this field. It's just getting, you know, by utilizing a consultant. I like for us to be the first boots on the ground because we don't have anything in it but to educate as far as harvesting is concerned and management. But, you know, then it's got to go to a consultant, or it should, if a landowner really wants to protect themselves. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong, you know, in a sale. There's just a lot of things. So, but the, it's by far not just the Amish. There are some real shysters floating around, taking advantage of people. And I, you know, and I've heard guys say that they watch for land transfers. A lot of times these properties are going to children. And of course, multiple kids sometimes don't have the same idea. Yeah. They don't do any homework. They're antagonistic with each other, and things go awry. Or you have a widow, they watch obituaries.
Are you serious?
Where do you think that these cards come from? They can get on the auditor's website and very easily look. You can see with aerial photos who's got big timber. It's not hard to see. You can see right where I can send a card to say, hey, you want to sell some timber, you want to make some money. Yeah. It's just and you know, back to the numbers thing. When I say one forester, a very busy forester, can feed one mill, there's only 50 or 60 consultants working the state right now.
Really?
So, yeah. And if a lot of them are only doing 1 million feet or 1.5 million, the mills, and I've had the buyers tell me, you know, we can't win all the bids that we get from consultants. So I have to buy privately, because I've said it before when years ago in a workshop I was putting on for a group of master loggers. I said, I don't want any of you buying directly from my clients at all. And I was told that's not possible. And so I stopped and I asked, you know, what do you mean? And he enlightened me on the numbers. He said, we run 9 million feet a year. I have to buy privately because I can't win. I don't get enough volume. coming from the foresters to feed my mill.
Really?
Yeah, they can't buy it all because there's others, out there buying. So in that perspective, we don't have enough foresters. Again, the consultants I've worked with over the years and recruited and to work in my regions are all very busy. I talk to them regularly and ask them, how are you doing? How's it going? Rarely they have slowdowns on occasion, but that's just kind of the atmosphere.
John, you mentioned education being, what you guys do, and kind of a disconnect between maybe what you guys do and landowners. What are some red flags that landowners can look for? And you mentioned what 85% of timber harvests are being done without a plan or without the help of a forester. Kind of a two-part question. What are some red flags that a landowner can look for from a forester, from a logger, to avoid a lot of the mistakes that you're seeing being made in a harvest?
The red flags. Well, people showing up at your door with a contract in hand and a check for $3,000 or $4,000. That happens a lot.
No.
Oh,
wow.
You should see some of the contracts. Just little tricks in the contracts that are. A lot of these guys will have a 1 or 2 page contract at the most. Mm-hmm. A consultant's going to have 5-6 pages covering all kinds of topics, and it's a contract he has to administer. So he's not going to send that to some rum-dum that won't abide by it. But I've seen things. One of the biggest things is you'll hear the same thing. Well, we're just going to do a select cut, 16 inches POC or 12 inches POC and up. That's all. Well, nobody knows what POC is. That's point of cut.
I was saying, I don't know what POC is. I'm sorry.
I was going to ask you, but I don't want to put you on the spot.
No.
It's point of cut.
Really?
And when you take a 12-inch tree, guys can process a 12-inch tree into what we call a cant that they put into, they resaw it and put it into pallets. But a 12-inch diameter tree at the base at POC is going to be pretty wide. So it just gives the buyer the latitude to take everything that they can make a stick out of. Wow. And they do. I've had conversations. I remember down in Tuscarawas County once, a landowner called me and he was all really upset and had the law out on a guy. And he was arguing about the diameter that was in the contract. And this particular buyer didn't put POC, but he just put diameter. So there was definitely an argument ensued, because right after the landowner called me, the buyer called me. And he's like, what does this mean? This diameter at 4.5 feet. He had like no clue that that's what the landowner's vision was. And so I don't know how they rectified that situation or if they did. It's just, that's one thing. Just signing anything without getting an opinion from a forester is just a bad idea. It's a bad idea. I had a guy here recently who he had a portable mill came in. He didn't want that. He had bought a piece of ground. It's maybe 30 acres. That he and his daughter were going to build a cabin there and use it as a point of recreation. And they lived in Florida. He found out what happened to this place and drove all the way up here straight through just to find the guy who hadn't paid him a dime. And he didn't know quite how to find him. But he did know, he found out where he lived. So he went to a local store, a small store, and it was just bad mouthing the guy until he showed up. And, he spent his whole weekend up, and he coerced the guy. Well, he didn't coerce him. He got upset with the guy till he paid him. He still paid him a pittance of what it was worth. But, so they're his property that he had to pay property taxes on, and he had this vision of enjoying, was just like a bomb went off, as a mess. And he had to fight the guy, and none of that should have happened. None of that would have happened. And that kind of stuff happens a lot. It just happens a lot.
And a consulting forester can, I guess, break down the language of those contracts to, I guess, protect the buyer, but more so protect the landowner and protect the seller, and ensure that everything's being T's are crossed and I's are dotted.
Yes, and
the landowner's protected.
The guys are protecting, the consulting foresters are protecting both. Like I said, most of the consultants are going to have their list of vetted buyers. And a big sale that can attract people from 100 to 150 miles away, they're going to have a different list. When they've got a smaller sale that's relatively local, they've got a list, but they're all vetted. Many, many times I've had consultants call me and ask me about a certain buyer. And me being in the field I'm in, I don't know the buyers like the consultants know the buyers. So if the consultant happens to be, spreading out of his comfort zone and into a different area, I call the foresters in that area that I know well, and I said, hey, you ever sold to this company? And so you just network around to get information on people. So there's a lot of things a consultant can do. And we help them in, letting them know what's going on with the government programs, letting them know what's going on with the auditors, because auditors, I know I'm going off on a little tangent here, but I would say the auditors' offices would probably lead to 75-80% of a reason a landowner calls a forester. You follow that? That's because of the property tax reduction programs. When the tax bills in
Ohio,
yeah. When the tax bills go out in January and I think June or July, we get a lot of calls, and a lot of those calls are directed to us from the auditor's office. And it's I've always felt it's kind of a shame that that's why we're getting the calls. I would rather they were calling us just to get education about the resource. But, so conversely, what we've done is we've been working and training auditors' offices and taking auditors out on visits with us in their county so they can actually learn about the resource. We've done that for a while. It could be a lot more formal, I think, and better done if we did it more often. Because they've been very helpful. Many of them have been very helpful in guiding landowners what to do and to get a forester.
It always amazes me. We've had, I forget how many podcasts we've done so far, and I've said it before. When Cody and I decided to do this and really tackle what we're doing, well, I was naive. It's like, all we got to do is promote logging and, grouse. Let me finish. Yeah, just promote logging and grouse will just flourish, right? It's that simple. And I'm so glad. I kind of wanted to talk about this, and this, and I'm glad Cody asked that question about red flags, because that's what it kind of. No one talks about that. Now, it might not be everybody's cup of tea, and down in Virginia, it might be different stories. In Pennsylvania, it might be different stories. But in a state like Ohio, where it's, becoming more urbanized and rural anymore, you're having family farms, the kids, your mom and dads are passing away, the kids have it, etc., blah, blah, blah. And it's just like there's always something to tackle when it comes to forestry. It's not black and white by any streets.
No, but it's not that complicated either, in my opinion. I only know Ohio, but I also anymore as I've gotten older, I'm looking at big picture stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I just read a presentation, one of the slides from the Ohio Forestry Association today, saying, we have more woodland than we have corn and bean acreage.
Yeah,
and yet the resources put into corn and beans and the information that's out there for people is huge. There's many people employed supporting that resource or those resources.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas timber is, I saw one of the stats on the slide was it's a quarter of the ag related economic impact is timber products here in Ohio. But it just doesn't get its just due. It's kind of, people just don't look at it hard as a natural resource.
What you're saying is that in the ag industry, there's so much information, there's so much this. When it comes to the forestry industry, the forest product industry, like what an opportunity in Ohio, that CAUV, the tax, reduction when you manage your forest. That's what, basically
Right.
in a nutshell, what CAUV. Cody, what's it? Do you guys have that down in Virginia, a tax reduction?
We have
Thing when it comes
carbon credits, forest carbon credits. I don't think it's the same
Yeah, it's
thing.
a lot different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what you have down there, Cody. I did talk with one of they have a Department of Forestry there, I believe. It's not a division of their DNR.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember a couple of years ago talking to one of your guys there, and I was kind of flabbergasted at that. And I said, "How the hell did you guys do that? Get that built?" And he said it was before his time, but he also said, well, 80% of our acreage is forested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I thought, I don't think their forest products industry is as big as ours. I can't quote anything on that, but Ohio's one of the number one furniture producers.
Oh yeah.
And wood producers.
Yeah. I'm thinking paper mill, like where Cody's at, but yeah.
In the country. Yeah. So, I don't know. What I
was saying about like what a missed opportunity, like dealing with educating like you said, you are educating the auditor site, but like every June, July, come tax season, people are they're pounding their fist on the table, like my property tax went up, I'm doing it, screw it. And they should be able to like, oh, hey, it's just like call 811, call before you dig, right? It's like call before you cut. They should have a phone. They should have information that goes, no, these are the steps that you take. Just don't cut your woods. I mean, they should be able to get pamphlet. They should be able to get an email. Like step 1, call Division of Forestry or your private consultant. Step 2, do this. Step 3, do this. Call before you cut type deal when it comes to programs throughout the country. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, and that's been a difficult thing to really enhance because there's so many other things going on that we have to attend to. You're putting fires out, service foresters and consultants, you're putting fires out so much that developing, and again, the consultants don't need the work, really. And if I go promoting that, it got to the point here the last 5-6 years with the government programs, which are eating up a lot of time and not very efficient. We haven't been able to self-promote that program, even though it's probably our most efficient visit, where in 2 hours or 3 hours, including drive time, you go out and educate a landowner for an hour and a half, 2 hours, see what their resource is and explain to them, okay, now you need to do this. If this is where you want to go, here's your next step. Those are very efficient. They're just a visit and a follow-up email with here's your direction. But a lot of the other stuff we do is it's just not as efficient, but we don't have the ability to self-promote.
Yeah.
We don't, like I said, we don't even have the consultants. We can't, here lately at the state level, we've had difficulty filling positions for service forestry, which in my younger days was never the case.
Yeah, let me interrupt you because I want to pivot to that real quick, unless Cody wants to chime in on something. But it's you said they have enough business. You've mentioned that several
Mm-hmm.
times.
Mm-hmm.
Consulting foresters, they don't need to advertise necessarily.
Right.
Is there room? This is a couple point question. Is there room for more consultants? Is there more room? Like, can the state of Ohio and Virginia, and I know you don't know other states necessarily, but is there room for, like, hey, I'm a young high school kid. I want to, is this an opportunity to work? Is this a field to get into? I mean, whether it's state, whether it's private, what do you, is this, you see what I'm trying to say? And we're starting to ramble.
Yeah. There's absolutely a ton of room for it. If we were able to promote and educate more efficiently than we are currently, there would even be more room for it. When you have 80% or 85% of the timber sales being done without a forester, yeah, there's a ton of room for more business. Again, you're not going to you can get a few guys coming out of school that can do the consulting part. You got to have thick skin. You got to be a little bit brash, because you're dealing with guys that you're having to stop guys from doing bad practices on occasion. You've got business owners.
Oh, I see.
You can't just come out of school as a kid very often and understand, okay, now I'm in the big boy arena now.
Yeah.
And these guys who own mills, and you got to think, the guys who own mills are buying timber, they're selling product, they're maintaining equipment, they're doing payroll, they're doing all this stuff that, they're doing a lot of stuff. And you got to deal with them. They're not going to be always real pleasant with some young guy telling them, hey, you got to go in the back and finish up something you didn't do that I probably should have been here 3 days ago to tell you about. Little things like that. Just, hey, you got to stop logging today. It's getting you're doing too much damage, too much mud, whatever the case may be. Yeah. And there's just not a lot of young people prepared to do that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of guys who could.
Well, you got to start somewhere. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You got to cut your teeth. Well, whether you work for, instead of going private, work for the state, work for a company where you can get mentored or whatever.
Right. And the interesting thing, though, is with the consultants I've worked with, they are always very helpful to anybody that's trying to break in. Just because there's just more work out there than they can do. I know that as a fact. I just had a woman that signed a bad contract, and she had contacted 2 of the best foresters in the state, but they're getting up in years and don't want to do a 200-acre sale, and so she tried, but we'll see how it comes out. But there's just all kinds of little nuances to it. But that's another thing I wish we were able to do is we have, I think, close to 40 high schools that teach natural resources across the state, either through their FFA programs or what have you. That's how I got introduced to it. It was years and years ago through the FFA programs. But we just aren't making a real concerted effort to work directly with those, the Department of Education on getting to those kind of groups on a regular basis. There's just a lot. Farm Bureau is the other one. Auditors Association. I mentioned them previously, but those entities, if we could just spend a lot of time educating them, we could get a lot of traction. But yeah, the problem still remains. There's not a lot of available foresters out there.
Are you seeing very many kids, coming out of college? Is that trajectory of foresters, young foresters, people entering the field, is it going up or down? Because we have a community college here in town, and I was talking with a professor the other day, and it's Mountain Gateway Community College. I'm not exactly sure the specifics of the program. It's a forestry program. And there's forestry at bigger universities all across the country. But he mentioned their specific program, they are one of only 23 in the entire country. And I talked with him last summer, and he mentioned, I don't want to speak incorrectly, but 2 or 3 somewhere up and down the East Coast that had dissolved within the last couple of years. So it sounds like it's just becoming harder and harder to pursue the career if kids want to do it. And on the other side of the coin, it feels like there's, with kids in today's society, fewer kids are pursuing these type of careers in the outdoors.
Right.
So all that to say, do you see an interest in younger kids pursuing this type of career, or is it just getting fewer?
There's a little bit, but if we don't get to them and explain things to them and get them exposed to working foresters, a lot of kids, and I'm working with a lot of natural resource professors now, or graduates now, who got their degrees in environmental science. That's been a big thing. It sounds nice,
right?
I guess, but they're not getting the credits to be able to professionally. When I talk to the president, our professional association is the Society of American Foresters, and they set the bar for what the universities have to teach to get accredited by that professional organization. And a lot of these resource professionals do not have those credits. They've dabbled in it, but then after myself and others, after we started educating them about this resource, they're kind of wishing they'd have gotten into forestry. So we got environmental science majors, we got, sorry Eric, but wildlife majors. The difference that I always tell these young people is, listen, in our field, you don't have to work for the government. We got a product to sell, and helping people do that correctly is one of the main things you do as a forester here in Ohio. And there's just not a lot of available programs for people who have already got a degree to go. I mean, just recently, something that's been coming online, I think Michigan State possibly. I've done some recommendation letters to several people they're taking online classes to get the extra credits they need because they want to do consulting work. But no, we don't have a good system. We've got Ohio State, but the kids going to main campus, I don't know if you've thought about this, but they're competing with the doctors and lawyers and all these people that, if they're going straight to main campus, it's difficult for them to get in sometimes when you're competing with all these other people just to get in the door. So that's a challenge. That's what I hear is a challenge. We don't have a lot of other programs in the state. It's just not getting, this resource is it's just not getting, to me, it's just due at all. If you look at all the stuff, not just forest products, but the wildlife habitat, the aesthetics, the erosion control, just so many benefits, clean air, clean water, all this stuff, water filters and air filters. And, it's just stunning to me that it's virtually unmanaged, in my opinion. And all the way, even from the early stages, from the young forest to the mature saw timber, it's all the way through the process. So we're not growing it nearly as fast as we could. I used an analogy the other day. I said, in forestry, we're like a corn farmer who's satisfied with growing 50 bushels an acre of corn for 150 years.
Well,
we're
that's
still
a very good analogy. I mean,
it's what it is. And it's like,
John,
no way would they do that. Now they're up to, 175, 200 bushels an acre a year. When I was a kid, if we got 120, I was happy. So we're not doing any of that with woodland, or very little.
Well, that's what's aggravating, John. I was in a good mood until I talked to you.
Well, imagine how I feel.
John, I mean, I'm so aggravated by this. It's like it's so unorganized. I mean, we're only highlighting certain things, so you got to be open-minded to all that. But everything, it seems it's coming across like, and you're not doing it. It's just you're telling the truth and you're seeing what you see. You only know what you know. It's just like from the bottom to the top, we're trying to do this, and it's almost unachievable because there's pieces missing throughout the thing, and a lot of it's education, a lot of it's this, a lot of it's that, and we're trying to promote healthy forest ecosystems and promote, rough grouse and rough grouse management when, like, the house is not, it needs fixed before we can even do that, right?
Yeah, a lot of things are
I
broken.
love that analogy about the corn. I mean, that's almost it.
Well, there's a lot of things that are broken. There are a lot of things I think we should be focusing on, and that's just the whole profession. And again, the education piece is a big part of it, but when you're bogged down with administrative stuff and to the point where you don't want to do a workshop because you don't have time to go visit the people that come up to you afterwards and want an appointment. It's just like, that's just the way that's what it has been for quite a long time.
Yeah.
But I don't know what to do about that. That's I've worked with, the Farm Bureau is our biggest lobby, ag lobby in the state, but they're really not forestry minded that much yet. I think, and communicating, as communicating to everybody that needs to know this stuff to change the tide is not easy. You can spend all day, and I often do, all day on the phone or on emails, trying to just guide people in the right direction. And it's still it's scratching the surface is what it's doing. So, we're working with Farm Bureau a little bit to try to get some timber policy ideas out there, working with consultants to do, they're looking at that too. But a lot of people didn't, and I didn't know the process to getting to that group for a long time. It's only been 10 years maybe that I understood, oh boy. I don't know if you remember, Eric, but do you remember when Aaron Cash and I went out to Highlandtown and all your district came there?
Yes.
Well, that was a pivotal moment that led to a lot of partnerships. And it's where I was stunned at stuff that was obvious to me wasn't understood.
No, not at all. Yeah.
It just wasn't. And I've found that that's the case with this topic, which doesn't seem that difficult to me, how to manage, and what steps to take to do it correctly. It's not that hard. All you gotta do is listen. And, but I remember that in particular, that workshop led to us working with the city of Akron. It led to us working with Metro Parks. It's led to us working with a bunch of groups. And some of your personnel were instrumental in that, in making those connections happen, because they were kind of surprised at what they didn't know.
Yeah.
And I found that working with all these organizations, but they can learn fast. Some of them have really, really advanced and done great work on their properties.
What the thing was is that there was time allocated to educating professionals who thought they knew what they were talking about, and stuff like that, and being open-minded. But again, it comes back to allocated time to educate.
Yeah.
Look what that created. Look what that created by just educating people. We just need to figure out how we do that more.
Well, it's, I don't know, it's got to be structured. Like, we only did that one time, and that was 8-9 years ago.
It's been a minute.
Yeah. And we could have done that. We should have something in place, or I guess I could have done it. But
way to drop the ball, John.
I've dropped the ball a lot. It's led to a lot of frustration. But you could do that every year or two, and you bring in the new employees, go to different sites on your lands.
Yeah,
that you might have questions about. And fortunately, we get to see what landowners do on lots and lots of different properties over the course of our career. So you can bring that knowledge base into it. When you're educating others. So it's interesting, but there's so much work to do. It's frustrating.
Yeah, education seems to be the common theme here, John. And I don't mean to, I am putting you on the spot. I don't mean to do it this way, but use this opportunity, use this platform that you got right now to educate whoever's listening on what you would like to see be educated about logging, forest management. It's a tough question to, I'm asking you to educate the positives of forest management on the spot on a podcast without any heads up. But this is an opportunity to a lot of people listening to understand the role of a consulting forester, but the benefits from the forest product, where the wood is going, the wildlife benefit that you touched on, the economic positive impact. Forestry, it pun intended, like it's like a big tree, and off of all the branches, there's the wildlife benefit, the economic benefit. The trickle down effect is substantial. But as we've learned in this conversation, a lack of education, a lack of understanding of all of those positive branches off of forest management seems to be the disconnect. So I'm kind of rambling a little bit now to give you some time to prepare an answer. But this is your opportunity.
Be positive, John. That's what he's saying.
Well, there's
good stuff.
No, there's the reason I do say it is kind of simple. And I always go back to something a forester said years ago that it resonated with me. They're just big plants, and you can grow them faster. You can grow better quality. You can make the place, your home or whatever your woodland is, aesthetically better looking. You can improve the wildlife habitat in many different ways, improve food production, cover, and it just comes down to how knowledgeable you are and whether you will willing to use a chainsaw. There's so many things you can do to a woodland to manipulate it to be what you want. But understanding, a lot of people don't know how to formulate goals. They really don't have any goals. Until you go out and I've had times where I just go out and cut a couple of trees down on a landowner's place and say, okay, so what do we do now? Or what effect does this have? And they're kind of stunned by the fact that, oh, golly, I can speed this management process up by 40 years. You just have to kind of understand how trees grow. Old farm fields can come back in a pretty decent stand of trees, or they can come back over a 20-25 year period where you've got some real ugly trees in there. So what do I do about that? one of the benefits to a forester is we can look at a stand of trees and kind of grow it in our mind and see what happened, and then see where do we want to go with it. And then you got to do the work necessary to get it there. But there's so much that can be done. I don't know if I'm answering your question much, Cody, but the educational piece is just, and it continues to happen. I mean, I had a logging done where I did what I call an improvement cut. People will argue with my definitions, but I got rid of the junk. It was saw timber size class stuff in 2019. Okay, I'm up in Northeast Ohio. Half of my stand was a high spot of oak, northern reds, and half of the property was a largely red maple old orchard. So, but I'm watching it grow back. Didn't do a lot until I got my team out there. We had a district meeting at my property, and we took a walk. And I started noticing that most of my regeneration of new trees in the openings, I didn't leave a lot of openings, but most of the regeneration were 3 species I didn't want: black gum, elm, and ash. And so when I started really looking, I did not have the oaks and hickories that I wanted. And consequently, and this is 6 years later before I realized it. And I lived right in the middle of it. And, but, last winter and going into this winter and last summer is just, we cut and treated that stuff. Just thousands and thousands of stems. And I'll be replanting in the dry spots, oak and poplar and different things I want. But I've been doing this for a long time, and I didn't catch that as early as I should have. Honestly, I just didn't. So I don't know. There's just a lot you can do, but until you ask the questions and know to ask the questions, that's what's kind of frustrating for me, where I think we could make some improvements by working with our partners more. Again, Farm Bureau's got a huge landowner base as members. They could be at least telling their members, hey, get an education, ask the questions. That's all. Just ask the questions. It's, I don't know. That's the biggest thing, in my opinion. We've just got to get to the people.
I'm glad you said
but
it.
But we need to pull our partners in.
Yeah. Forest management or a forest can be a lot of different things. It doesn't have, we're advocating for forest management and logging. And I think people have a pretty tunnel vision view of what that might look like.
Oh, yes.
But we've always said wildlife management, forest management is the exact same way, that it's an art form. And under the umbrella of forest management, foresters are the artists or the sculptors, because you can take a forest, young forest, closed canopy, and there's a lot of flexibility in how you can manage it. Like you said, for aesthetics, for wildlife, for timber production, or for, to maximize a future harvest. So I think that's a big thing that we collectively as a community need to educate on, because, that's what, like Eric mentioned, we're advocating for forest management, cut responsibly with a wildlife focus. But there's a lot of different things you can do with a forest. A forest is a living, breathing thing. Like you said, with with the woods you were managing, you do a cut, and then a couple years go by, and you got some species coming back that you don't want. Well, that's okay. That happens to everybody, but it's also an easy fix. Just because you're encountered with a roadblock or an obstacle or tree species that you don't want to do, because forest management is so fluid and flexible. Some chainsaw and a herbicide or a plant or some bare root seedlings, a little sweat equity, and over quick work, that forest is becoming less of what you wanted it to be and more of what you specifically wanted it to be. And what you want it to be could be entirely different than what I want it to be. The take home point is just it's a very flexible piece of clay that you can mold it in to whatever you want it to be. But with the help of a consulting forester.
Well,
sure
yes,
it's done
that's
well.
true. But I will say also though, I don't know nearly the stuff about wildlife that I should. I'm sure that I'm not. There's things I'm doing that aren't. I don't say they won't benefit wildlife, but there probably more that could be done, or things done a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Like I teach landowners, a lot. Like, okay, we've got a bunch of cull trees in here, just trees that aren't gonna do us any good over time. So why don't we use that material for something else? Make some habitat out of it. Get it out of the picture. It's just, I don't know. There's just so much. A woods left to its own devices. Trees are. I always say this because I'm not big on some of the things that are going on out there now as far as philosophies, but to me, they're killing each other. They're going to find their space. And if you think about the woods over time, the larger trees that get their space are just going to get bigger and bigger until they crash. But you're going to get less trees per acre constantly. They fall out of the system. And, the way it is most of the time in an unmanaged woodland, you're going to have this from seedling to 24-inch saw timber size class tree, you can have 80 to 120 years, depending on the stocking level and the crown size and all that, to get a tree to that size. But if you're not doing anything thinning wise, I'd say it's 30, 40 year period where they're figuring out who's going to make it and who's not.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a manager or landowner, that's a good time to be manipulating. Okay, I want this plant to grow. I want that plant to grow. It's an acorn producer. It's an economic, benefit later down the road if I ever so choose to use it as that. So you manipulate these things. It's not that hard once you understand how they grow.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Well, I remember, I don't know if you remember, John, I had you over at the farm behind my house, and we were walking in a high stem density. It was a chip cut, and it was pretty high stem density. Like I said, I don't know if you remember. And
I do.
we were there probably an hour, and what I learned was absolutely amazing. It's like at a young stage how you can, with sweat equity, like Cody said, you can produce this incredible ecosystem by addressing it early. And you were showing me something like, oh my God, this oak tree is starving, it's competing with this, and all you got to do is this, and it's at a smaller stage, less herbicide, less work, all this stuff, if you would just address it. And that's the thing, going back again, thinking you know something and you really don't, and you need educated on it. It is again, it's when you were pointing that out, it was like, duh.
Yeah,
Duh.
right. It isn't that complicated to me. I mean, the trees are kind of telling you what's going on with them by their condition, their self pruning, their different things like that. So you look at a stand and say, okay, there's a certain time you can do things.
Mm-hmm.
I always used to teach landowners, after a heavy cut or a clear cut or what have you, at 12 years old, you gotta do vine control to make sure they don't, really tear up your trees, stuff like that. Then you need the trees to compete heavily with each other for a while if you want to have the option of growing quality marketable trees.
Yeah.
So they've got to self prune, the bole's got to come clean. Yeah. But then at a certain point, you've got to you've got to thin them if you really want them to increase their diameter growth, get some canopy, which correlates to diameter growth, space them a little better, get rid of the poor quality stems. It's not that hard once you learn some basics of how they grow.
Yeah.
At least in my neck of the woods. I can't speak for other areas.
Yeah,
Of course,
so
it's funny to me, and I think this is not a knock on people who are kind of disconnected from the system and how it works, but I'm glad you said that about trees and how they compete with each other, because if you clear cut 10 acres, I mean, from that first growing season, poplar as a species is competing with oaks.
Mm-hmm.
That's why poplar puts so much effort in going out and going up, because oaks put so much effort in going down. And not to humanize tree species, but poplar's like, F you, I'm going to beat your ass for sunlight.
Right.
And it gets to the point where I think people, they think you should just, and it's a preservationist mindset to, just let forests take care of themselves, but it's a competition. Individuals are competing against individuals, species are competing against species. And like you said, they have to, that vigor and that competition is a good thing, but over time, I think people think, well, just let forests run their course and, it will become what it's meant to be. And that passive approach to forest management, I think, is more damaging and negligible than actively managing a forest, whether it be for timber production or for wildlife or whatever your goals are. And it's more of a responsibility as a landowner or whatever the case may be to manage your forest. Managing your forest actively, whether that's cutting, herbicide, fire, whatever the case may be, is better, healthier, a better reflection of stewardship than just letting a forest, grow and become beautiful, because over time it just results in this overstocked forest. It's unhealthy as a forest, unhealthy individual trees, and then unhealthy wildlife habitat.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I first started working with partners and understood that they didn't really understand how trees grew and what's going to happen if we do this, that, or the other. I lost my train of thought there. So
no, well, another thought too. I'm glad you
said
is they're just big plants. And we
Yes.
I even wrote that down.
We romanticize trees and we romanticize forests. I am just as guilty of it as the next person. We get so attached to individual trees and individual forests, yet we weed our garden, and we by plucking this plant, we encourage this plant. It's the same principle.
It is. It's like gardening on a big scale. That's the other term I use. That's what it is. And people just don't. Well, there's a few things. It's a lot of sweat equity. You've got to be handy with the chainsaw. You've got to be willing to look and do things. Most people are kind of scared to do something. They're afraid they're going to do something wrong. And we've seen that with a lot of different topics, but forestry is a big one. I've got landowners who they'll do the work, but they're just scared to make the decisions. Mm-hmm. They don't want to pick which tree to thin because they feel like they might be making a mistake. But I've on occasion, I can only remember once really, in Holmes County, I had a young couple of guys who were deer hunters mainly, but they wanted to take care of their woods, and they actually over-thinned a young stand. Luckily, they only did an acre or two before they called and said, "We want to see if we're doing this right." And I'm like, "No, you're overdoing it."
Hey, nice savanna that you have now.
Yeah, well, we didn't get that far, but people are afraid to make a decision on this stuff.
Well, John, we got a couple more questions here. I know you're busy, but one of the questions, and Cody, it's almost the same question as Cody asked. That you have a platform here, okay? Mm-hmm. I am that 60-70% of the public that has no opinion whether logging is good or bad. Sell me. Like I'm considering, like, sell me. I mean, again, it's almost similar to what Cody asked. Sell me. I mean, give me the quick and dirty version, but at the same time, sell me why it's so beneficial. Like, this is a good thing that I want to cut my trees. Mm-hmm. Sell it to me, brother.
Well, there's a point in the life of a woodland where it just makes sense to do a harvest, a particular kind of harvest. There's some things that can drive it, like storms, different things like that. But in general, just as a forest matures, if it starts getting too large, you have different challenges. You know, you got big trees to try to take down, or they're going to come down on their own. They're going to come down in an uncontrolled fashion versus a controlled fashion. If you let a woods grow too long, and I guess the point I was going to make earlier, and I lost my train of thought, was I've seen so many resource professionals. They just thought if we leave everything alone, we'll have everything we want, and man is bad, and that's a very common thought, and that's just not true. It's just not the way things work. The woods is going to change. It just changes. It takes it a little longer to do it than we're used to because we're not around that long. But logging is it's a great tool. You can do species composition. You can improve growth. You can make a little bit of money. You can improve wildlife habitat. That is one of the biggest tools. And that's why when you mention call before you cut, even if a landowner does nothing more than call a forester before they do a harvest, that is the time when you have the biggest impact on your woodland resources, when you think you need a cut. That's when you're going to have the biggest impact on the resource. And it can be positive or it can be negative. It depends on what kind of education you get. So there's plenty of foresters out there to help. Not plenty, but there are foresters out there to help. Be patient. There are operators that are tremendous and will take care of your property and with the help of a forester. You just, as a landowner, you need to listen when you're told. And one of our big jobs on these call before you cut visits are, okay, I gotta convince the landowner why this needs to be done. And then, you got to tell them, listen, be patient. It's not going to look the same 10 months from now as it does right now, right after a cut. Changes drastically. One of the things I've done with partners is what I always call the good, the bad, and the ugly tour. I want to show them a well-done job. In early stages, a well-done job that is 2 or 3 years old. And a current job that's just terrible. That little tour in and of itself often gets the light bulb to come on. Our job, and we can kind of tell when you're out with a landowner, it'll take you 2 hours to get that light bulb to go off. But to convince them that, because for some reason it's ingrained in them, cutting trees is bad. And that's just so far from the truth, And most landowners do end up cutting at some point. They do, because someone throws some money at them and they think, okay, well, that's what I need to do. And they don't do any educating or get any education or get assistance. It is a great tool. Believe me. I go back to my property. My property, the average diameters weren't very big. And I had a lot of poor quality trees, a high percentage. And I drove down the lane every year for 7 or 8 years before I decided, okay, I got to try to do something here. Either I kill all this bad stuff I don't want, or I try to sell it. And I was able to do a sale, and finally, and it made a huge difference. Everything changes when you do it right. So,
well, it's
just your homework.
Yeah, it's such a major investment. Like Cody's farm in Virginia. I mean, Cody, how many people have you had out before you guys even decided to cut? I mean, this is such a valuable resource, and you don't want to do the right thing just because you have one person out. Hey, get another opinion, Cody. How many people have you? I mean, it was
in total 3 or 4 different so far.
getting advice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well,
maybe we
and everybody's got all the different foresters have their own, what they've learned over time. And I don't pretend to know what the consultants know at all, because I don't do managed timber sales. I've done them in the past when I was with a different division, but I didn't do it full time. They know all the ins and outs of that kind of stuff. So no, it never hurts to get different opinions from different foresters, because we've all seen the effects of things, and it's very smart to get a few people out there, and it's smart to go to workshops and get educated on some of this stuff. And believe me, a lot of the landowners I've had that have gotten personally involved in doing some of the work on their property, they love it. They love it. And I remember one fellow in Coshocton County called me, and he was in his deer stand. He says, "I'm mad at you." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, I'm standing up here trying to enjoy a deer hunt, and all I see is all the stuff that I should be doing in the woods." And I've had that conversation with 3 or 4 guys over the years. But
well,
anyway, no, it's a valuable tool. I like what you guys are doing. It's just there's a lot of work to do.
Well, that's a good question. Like I said, I want to kind of wrap this up a little bit because I know you're busy. I mean, I like the stuff that Cody, what we're doing, like, what would you love for us that we're trying to make the effort in educating? Where should we, in John's opinion, where should we concentrate on? What should we pivot to, etc.?
I would work with, and I would do this if I had my druthers, the bigger organizations that represent landowners, that could reach a wider group. Going individual to individual is just not working for us. It's just not. I pulled a letter from it's on my wall, 1945. A service forester was answering a landowner on the old onion skin papers about what all was wrong. And it was the same stuff that we're here today.
Really?
And yes. And I told my team, I'm like, listen, we're not doing something right. We got the same problems now as we had 75 years ago. And we're not making many inroads in it because we do the one-on-one model a lot. We try to do some other stuff, but the help we could get would be if we could educate the larger groups, the people that can represent larger groups of landowners.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
If Farm Bureau got as offended when one of their members got taken advantage of as I do, things would change. You know what I mean? They would change because those people will be personally like, hey, this is our fault that this is happening. And we could do a lot better in educating our members. So supporting those groups, identifying them first, and then supporting them. You can include government agencies in that. There's a lot of the agencies that they don't have a lot of time, but they don't know a lot about it. Anything forestry related. Yet they're charged with assisting landowners with cost share programs and things like that. So I guess if I had my choice, that's what I would target: bigger groups. And the school programs, like I say, the FFA programs. That's who I would go after first, because they can that will impact the whole, I think, a lot more, or get people to get the information they need. That's my thought, but it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of communication, which isn't easy.
Involved with the FFA, then you're getting involved grassroots, and then getting involved with the people who can educate the masses. Then you're casting a pretty wide net. So that makes sense.
Right. That's what I would prefer to do.
Well, I tell you what,
He just gave
it's
you
a lot of
homework.
but
Work.
I know I got so many notes here. It's unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, yeah, this was a different type of podcast we've done. To be honest with you, John, at least in my opinion, I had all this stuff that I was wanting to ask you and stuff, and I'm sure Cody too. But I was just letting you talk, and this podcast, I'll just be upfront and honest with you, might not be everybody's cup of tea, but I know for me personally, and I'm sure Cody as well, we needed to hear some of the things that you were talking about. So I know we got a lot of we got some work to do.
Yeah, yeah, and
We got a lot of work to do.
yeah, and I apologize. I will ramble at times about this, but
No, you're
a
fine.
lot of this stuff is just, it's the same thing that rolls through my mind every day on almost every conversation, some piece of it.
Yeah.
And so it's very normal for me to go on like this about the resource and the problems we're having.
Well, I tell you what, I wouldn't expect anything else from you, and I mean that in a positive way, because you're passionate about what you're doing. Number one, and you care about what you care. And if you didn't have either one of those, then this conversation would have been, I mean, blah 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 blah. I want to hear the truth, and sometimes the truth comes off negative. Sometimes the truth comes off doom and gloom. Sometimes the truth does this, but everybody needs to hear it, because that way we know where to start.
Right.
We know we're identifying the problem. Like, I'm Cody Altizer and I'm an alcoholic. I mean, he just needs to say it. You know what I mean? He won't, John, but no, it's just, but yeah, it's, you need to hear things. And again, it might not be everyone's cup of tea, but I know for us, we needed to hear it. I mean, a lot of this, so I appreciate your time very much. So.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anytime, but I will tell you, if we do this very often, you're going to start hearing the same things over and over and over again.
That's all right.
So,
yeah, it's all right.
Yeah.
All right. But anything else, Cody? You got anything?
No, John. I just echo what Eric said. Thankful for your time. Appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on. And I mean, if nothing else, you educated Eric and I. And there's a lot of people out there who listen to our podcast who will find a lot of value in a lot of the things that you said. So we appreciate that.
Well, you're very welcome.
Yep. But hey, John, I got a couple questions before we'll end this, but stay on the line if you would, real quick.
Good. Yep.
Don't click off.
All right. We'll do.
All right. Thanks a lot, John.
You bet.
Well, what do you think?
What do I think? I tell you what, I'm going to be upfront and honest. There was a lot of information there that I wasn't expecting to learn about. How about that? It was, man, we kind of had an idea of where we wanted to steer the thing, but he kind of took it. We needed, I know I said it in the podcast at the end. I needed to hear that, and this might have been a podcast not for everybody. Okay. Might be dry, might be this, but if you go back and actually listen to what he was saying, man, I needed to hear it. I needed to hear a lot of that. Like, there is, man, it's an overwhelming type of thing that needs addressed, things to conquer, things to beat. And I think we can do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was, I don't know. This John was our first forester that we've had on the podcast.
Noah. We had Noah.
Yeah, that's true. But Noah's conversation, Noah was a forester, but his conversation was a little forestry,
more wildlife management and stuff. Yeah.
A cocktail of a lot of different things. This was forestry. And we've mentioned before that we're going to have foresters on talking about forest management and forestry. And we'll have episodes where grouse and wildlife are secondary. So this was the first of that iteration of episodes that we'll have. And you and I have talked about it. I think forestry, it's just such a complex industry that I'm learning more about, reading some books, trying to peel back the layers of that onion to understand how it all functions together. Because we've talked about it you and I get on this podcast and we're like, cut for wildlife. And fundamentally, yes, and in principle, that's very simple. But there's just so much more involved in that. And talking with John today was kind of the tip of the iceberg. He talked a lot about, there appears to be a pretty big hole or disconnect between landowners and loggers, and that disconnect being a lack of consulting foresters who can bridge the gap between the two to make sure that the harvest is done responsibly for the health of the forest and the trees and the wildlife, but also protecting the landowner and the seller and the logger and the buyer. All the tax credit information and the audit, the auditor's role in how people are managing their forest. It's just fascinating how layered forest management is in 2026. And you said it at the end, is this episode for everybody? Maybe, maybe not. But that's why we exist, is to have these episodes and these conversations and to educate people on the nuances of forestry.
Yeah. Because the next forester we have on, it's going to be a whole different topic of stuff. It's going to be down this rabbit hole. Next one we have on is going to be down that. Maybe it's regional. Maybe it's a state thing. We talked to Pennsylvania. Maybe we talked to one of them, and it's just all sunshine and roses. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's great. What do you mean?
Right. Yeah.
Or West Virginia. It's like, oh hell, all hell's on fire. It's just. It's fascinating. It really is. So, I appreciate John's time. As always, we had him on a long time ago, but yeah, this is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. I know I got a lot of ideas, Mr. Cody Altizer. I got some ideas, so we'll see.
I see. We know each other well enough. I can see the wheels turning in the brain up there from all the way down here through the computer screen.
Yeah.
I knew. Yeah, I could see the light bulb going off. I know when it was going off for you. I could see it. I could see your mind working.
Yeah, it's like, man, we got some ideas here. But anyway, appreciate everything. Appreciate you, Cody, very much, and all the hard work you do with Gift for Grouse initiative and the podcast and all the social media stuff. A lot of that falls on Cody, unfortunately. I'm just not technically savvy, so if you don't like it, you can criticize the hell out of it, in my opinion. Yeah, Cody, why isn't it this way? Shoot. But anyway, we'll be burning here soon together. You better save some burning for me. I'm going to be highly upset. I don't care if it's the front yard, we're burning it if that's all that's left. So
I got plenty to do. We started scratching the itch this past weekend. We had a couple burns, but they were easy ones. I save all the hard work for when air comes down.
Yeah, because I'll be physically able to do that. Yeah. We better not have what happened last year, and we'll leave that conversation to just nobody but us. But anyway, other than that, appreciate everybody. Go donate to the Billboard Fund. That's an ongoing thing. Let's kick that thing's butt and wrap that up. And then obviously what Cody said, the stickers and what have you. And thank you for supporting us. Go on our social media, click, like, share everything that we do. It helps out. And as my grandpa always used to say, no hurry, keep moving.